Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our discussion, Fiscal Accountability and Public Trust, Fixing Stratford's Broken Budget System. Also welcome to Councillor Chris Green, running for re-election in the 2nd District, and Karen Tracy, candidate for the Town Council in the 10th District. Thank you both for being here. Please, intros. Chris Green.
Happy to be here. Happy Halloween. Hope everyone got plenty of candy tonight. Chris Green, current District 2 Town Councilman. That's for anyone voting at Stratford High. Also have a wife, a 3-year-old daughter who loved Halloween tonight, 9-month-old son. And my background is as a math educator and a financial advisor. So love the numbers and love explaining them to people and love asking good questions about those numbers, especially when it comes to one of the major roles of the town council in Stratford, which is to pass a budget which sets how we spend our money in town and how we collect it each year.
Karen.
Hi, folks. Good evening and happy Halloween. My name is Karen Tracy. I'm running for town council in District 10, and you vote. These are for folks who vote at Second Hill Lane School. I am a software engineer. I'm a director of software engineering at the moment. And over the course of my career, I've worked on trading systems, financial systems, and accounting systems. So I'm a numbers person like Chris. And I've learned a lot about these kinds of systems from working with people who told me how to program them. So I think that Chris and I are going to have a great discussion tonight about some of the things that have occurred in town. So thank you so much for having me here.
It's great to have you both here. And I forgot to mention, I was concerned about the banner and waving to everybody right at the beginning. But I am Kathleen Callahan. I am the chair of the Democratic Party. And I'm really happy to have both of you with us and people that are joined online. So Stratford residents do our part. We pay our taxes, we support our schools, and we expect Town Hall to manage those dollars responsibly. But when we learn that nearly 58 million in business taxes went uncollected throughout the current mayor's terms, that's not bad math. It's a breach of public trust. Tonight, we'll unpack how that happened, what it means for taxpayers, and how reforms like a council board of finance could bring real oversight and transparency back to local government. Because this isn't about politics. It's about accountability, competence, and respect for the people of Stratford. So enough from me. Let's get into it. Please, anybody viewing, drop your questions or reactions in the comments, and I'll weave them in as we go. So let's start with the big picture, because $58 million gap didn't happen overnight. It points to deeper problems in how Stratford tracks, audits, and reports its finances. So Chris, start with you. You've been one of the few voices consistently asking where the numbers come from and how they add up. You were the one who caught the magical $7 million bump in the grand list, which changed the math for everyone. From your perspective, what went wrong here? Was this carelessness, miscommunication, or something more systemic?
Thank you, Kathleen. I first want to start with a little bit of background on budgeting for those who aren't as wonky with this, and also with what went right. So first and foremost, right, in passing the budget every year, this last year, we had a total budget of $266 million approximately. And obviously, as mentioned earlier, that means our budget is both saying where that $266 million is coming from and how we're going to spend it. We're going to be more focused on the where it's coming from side tonight, which is mostly taxes, specifically local taxes. 207 million of that $266 million number came from local property taxes this last year. Three main categories: real estate, motor vehicles, and personal property. That last one sounds a little weird. What personal property actually is it's the equipment inside of businesses. So think the machines inside of Sikorsky, or cooking instruments inside of restaurants across town. Now, all of these properties at differing intervals are assessed by the town for how much they're worth. In particular, typically what the assessed value is, which is how it appears on the grand list, is 70% of the full estimated value of that property. So the grand list is a list of all properties and 70% of what their value is. To me, this element is very important information to have in our budget. And one of the things I'll highlight as a problem is that grand list information is not typically included in our budget books. All we see is the output from that, because in order to figure out how much tax we have coming in, that $207 million of tax, basically it's multiplying each of those property types by the mill rate that we as the council set each year to give us our tax. So Stratford this year and last year had a 40.2 mill rate, which means a little over 4% of the assessed value of every property in town is what we're going to collect from you in tax. Motor vehicles is a little different there because there's a subsidy from the state. So we actually pay a slightly lower rate than that. But the big thing that went right with this budget is we were able to pass a budget that met the needs of all of our services in town, our schools, our public safety, all the other services. At least according to the department heads, we met all of their needs with this budget by increasing our funding by about $6 million. And we did it without having to raise the mill rate from last year. So last year and this year, 40.2 mill rate, taxing about 4% of the grand list. How did we do that? How did we come up with $6 million extra dollars? Well, the current administration initially tried to say, because they didn't provide the detailed grand list, that there was 3% grand list growth from last year, that the value of the properties in town had gone up and they were able to raise more taxes. I asked for them to show their work, and midway through the budget cycle, got a worksheet from CAO Timniak that outlined the grand list numbers from last year to this year. And what I saw there was pretty shocking, because the value of real estate in town went down. The value of motor vehicles went down. And the value of personal property went down. The way that our taxes grew was actually under the personal property section, the equipment owned by businesses, there was exemptions. There's about $820 million of personal property in Stratford, equipment owned by businesses. And the year before, $280 million of that was exempt. And all of a sudden this year, we went down to 80 million exempt. So that's a shift of $200 million of grand list assessed value, which equates to about $8 million in extra taxes. So big problem with that was finding out that this was a problem that had been going on for a long time. And the good news is we got a new assessor this year, Catherine Stouffer, and she went in and noticed this error, that we had been exempting more personal property than we should. It's complicated, but her basically explanation to me was that these properties should in general have exemptions that roll off after typically about 8 years. And yet we had properties that were listed as exempt from the 20s, the 1920s. And that was her line, not mine. So this was an ongoing long problem, and at a major scale. $8 million swing in the budget is probably worth $1.5 million on our tax rate. It's a huge, huge gap, this 7 to 8 million. And that's where I do think the chess campaign in multiplying that $7-8 million gap by the 7 or 8 years that the current mayor has been in office to come up with a $58 million number isn't wrong in assessing the magnitude of this problem. The good news is it was fixed for this year. Without that, our budget wouldn't have worked. The bad news is a huge missed opportunity for the town.
Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. This issue didn't even come to light till you were in the budget workshop and started digging into the particulars of these numbers, right? That it didn't dawn on anyone in town hall that this was a problem till you asked about it during the workshopping. Is that correct?
So, right. one of the issues with the system that we have in Stratford is the budget comes from the mayor's office, recommended to the council, the 10 members of the council who are elected to represent the 10. Stratford is cut up into 10 different districts. We then take that budget and send it to the ordinance committee for review. The issue being the ordinance committee is the same 10 people as the council. There's no outside looking in on this other than the mayor and the council. So once we got to ordinance committee and we started workshopping, and I noticed, wow, this is a really great budget. Taxes didn't have to go up, and we funded, 3% increase here. How'd that happen? Taxes went up 7 million with a mill rate flat. Chris Timniak, can I please have, information on the grand list to show how we got there? And again, having the administration say, oh, it's growth. This is growth, until I finally dug in and said, no, it's exemptions falling off. That's not growth. Again, all these categories of property are down this year. And there are some explanations for that. On the motor vehicle list, we redid how that's calculated because of some shifting statutes. For some individual properties, Army engine plant had to move around on that, and that impacted the real estate side and the exemptions as well. But all of that paled in comparison, again, to that one exemptions line. And the crazy thing to me when I brought this up was Timniak was citing these individual property shifts, and the mayor was citing issues in Hartford. And really what it was this one line and this fixing of the incorrect application of these exemptions on personal property that goes back apparently, decades.
To me, from working in finances and et cetera, this would have been a financial control that someone would have had in place to say, what exemptions are coming off this year? What can we expect next year? And yet it never seemed to occur to anyone that this was an issue till a new employee came, basically, right?
Kudos to Catherine Stouffer. Again, this is a huge deal. She, if you think about what that means to our budget, if we hadn't found this mistake, we would be in a dire place. I can't say enough about fixing that. But then to realize how long this had been going on, that was where I really wound up with the budget, was, commenting on this and pointing at the size and extent of this mistake to say, I think we need to think about doing things differently, because we're aberrant in not having a finance committee that would be hopefully some town councilors like myself who enjoy digging into the numbers, with some members of our community who have that background and skills. And, when I brought that out to have, the administration basically say, oh, we have auditors who look at this. Well, auditors in theory are really for if you do something illegal or make a big mistake, not for best practices. And yet also they didn't catch this big mistake. So, I think we have some questions to ask the auditors about, were you looking to make sure the exemptions that we were applying this whole time were correct? And do you agree with the assessor? I hope they do, because, I want these exemptions to be fixed in the state they are. It really helps us from a financial standpoint, but we also still don't know who these people were who weren't paying and now are. So we have no way, FOIA requests have been filed, questions have been asked, and we've really been stonewalled in really understanding deeper what this is about. As much as I think I understand it, I still can't be sure, just because of how much this administration has run away from the details of the situation.
Right. It strikes me that an issue of this magnitude, and all we're hearing is political spin from the administration, and that's unfortunate. A couple other issues come to mind for me for the 7 million. One is, can we actually collect it? Right? We don't know who these people are. Are we creating a hardship on some of these people because they hadn't been paying it for decades? And without great information from the administration, it's very hard for you to make any determination about the nature of this stuff. So I would also say that if there's something this big, there's probably something else big too that we won't know until December, when a bunch of Democrats are sitting on the town council, hopefully. So
well, I'm hopeful for that, but also, regardless of party, right, I do hope that we have, people in there who care to ask these questions and care to push for the answers. Right now, as much as I think, the current council has a lot of people who are there, hopefully for the right reasons and spirit. I think we all want the best for the town, right? To be standing and pressing on one side of the aisle and not have the other side pick this up and go, actually, this is an issue that should concern us all. I would hope that if and when the shoe's on the other foot, that I'd be asking these same questions of a Democratic mayor if I saw this problem.
And this is real. I've knocked on 1,000 doors now and spoken to hundreds of people. I'm sure you have too. And this is real money for our constituents here in town. These are things like if we were able to lower the mill rate, they may be able to purchase a new car. They may be able to go on vacation. They may be able to pay down debt. But instead, we're in a situation where the administration says, "Hey, our mill rate stayed flat." But when you're paying $8,000 to $10,000 a year in taxes, that message falls flat itself, right? So I don't think that that they're doing a great service by just saying we're keeping it flat. We need to give people real relief. And this would have been one of the things that would have given people real relief over the years, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, right, the other, side of this is long-term, budgets grow to keep up with inflation, 2 to 3% per year. And, this current administration, that was the one promise that they kept, was to try to keep the mill rate flat. And they managed to do it through most of this, but working with this and seeing the way the juice has been squeezed and these inefficiencies has been found. And in this case, this huge error, if we go back over these last 7 years, right, the cuts that had to be made, right, we really could have changed the trajectory of the mill rate and or the trajectory of our services, and likely both, having discovered this problem sooner. And in the long run, we have to find, paths to growth in the town that keep up with this, so that all of that growth that we need just to tread water. I'm not talking about going crazy. And I hope along the way we have ways to use technology and innovation to keep costs controlled. But ultimately, if you're not in that 2 or 3% range, we're falling behind in our schools, in our emergency services. And we need to have a path that allows for growth, because growth happens whether we plan for it or not. And if we don't have a vision, it's what we get when we drive down Main Street or Barnum right now, and we compare that to other towns and we see open storefronts. And it's good to see some of those coming back in piece by piece. But when you think about regional development and bigger picture planning, I'm looking and proud of this town and hopeful for, what we could be, but feeling like, more can be done there.
And I think you and I we've had a bunch of discussions around what a finance board would look like. I really feel that Stratford the people here have a lot of talent, and there are a lot of heart. I've certainly spoken to a lot of people who I think would actually be interested in serving on this board. But we don't have a mechanism for them to come in yet. So that's something that hopefully the next council will be able to examine, and maybe even look at all the boards and commissions. A lot of the town's business goes through boards and commissions. They don't always meet. They don't always have their alternates filled. And I think we should be looking at whether they actually serve our needs in 2025. One of the things I was thinking about, you mentioned technology, is a lot of towns, even in Connecticut, have technology advisory boards, and they could probably help with, some simple things about how to streamline some of the government processes that we have. So hopefully we have an opportunity to examine some of that stuff too.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunity there, having knocked on doors, through a few campaigns the last few years. One of the first things you get is just how many cool, great, interesting, skilled, passionate people live in this town. And right. I think the boards and commissions are a great opportunity, especially when you go through the boards and commissions on the website and see how many seats are vacant, how many seats are expired, how many alternate slots are unused, and or how many of them are filled by the same handful of people that have been there for 20 years. And of course, I want to have some expertise and institutional memory, but I couldn't be more excited that one of the big opportunities I think that we would have in a new administration and a new council control is to modernize, to re-envision, and to reinvigorate those boards, because there are just so many people who don't want to be involved on the messy politics side and yard signs and all that goes on with an election. But they do have incredible skills and incredible background that would help this town, and they're ready to step into those roles, whether that's finance or the environment, or as much as you're a numbers person, Karen, I know you're also a dog person,
Dog person.
So there's lots of room, I think, for people to be connected through our boards and commissions in ways that I feel like, again, we're not at all to our potential currently.
I just want to jump in real quick, because this is something, our mayoral candidate, David Chess, talks about a lot. And what do you think? I mean, the impact of restoring trust in government, because we know government at all levels, and I think, Chris, you brought it up maybe at the beginning or when we were talking before, it's challenging. So the impact of, it's a community-led, we're talking about a community-led council, finance board of finance, however it's going to come out and be rolled out when it does get rolled out. But community-led on all these board and commissions, and having people, all parties, whoever wants to get engaged. And David always talks about, neighborhood councils and getting people involved in their communities, in where they live, exactly where they live. How strongly will that impact, this trust in government and being part of it in the way that Chris was just describing you? Because I know you've been talking to people and having the volunteer experience down at the Stratford with the animal rescue. What do you think? What kind of lift would that give to people here?
So, I think distrust in government has been around a long time. And then when folks don't feel like they're being listened to, or they're being given, shrugging when, okay, so we didn't collect $7 million last year, that actually just increases distrust in government. What Dr. Chess has been saying, and I think we all agree with, is that transparency isn't just posting minutes from a meeting. That's not transparency. That's like bookkeeping or something like that.
And these minutes are skeletal.
Yeah, they're skeletal. They don't
real.
Actually reflect what's happened.
The statutorily minimum amount of information that they could give is in those minutes right now. Exactly.
And there's all different kinds of ways we could use StreamYard to this platform to engage folks. But what I think what Dr. Chess is really advocating for is we have 26 people running for office, right, on row A. And some portion of them will win. And they have a North Star, which is to go to the communities that they are running from and engage with the people there, have meetings, invite these folks to be on these boards and commissions, because then the decision making and the issues are closer to where the original problems lie in some extent, and the opportunities too, right? Those folks would know opportunities more than we would necessarily, because we don't really live in, we don't live everywhere, right? So I think his idea of just going out and talking to everyone, which he really enjoys, he is literally, I think David's talked to almost everyone in town at this point, right? And, great, just keep talking to people, because that's how you get them involved and that's how you get them engaged. He's formed a coalition that is really unbelievable here. And I think if he's mayor, he will just keep going and doing that. So, personally, I think transparency is having conversations with people and engaging them, including them in government. And then at least we've created opportunities for transparency and more trust, which I think is ultimately what we're looking for here.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to having, conversations with the public and engagement, that's one part of it. And the other part is how we get the information out. And right now, I just feel like there are weekly newsletters from the administration. There is an address from the mayor in the town council, but the way that information is presented ahead of, some of these really key functional issues, as much as it may not be interesting, it's still stuff that I think enough of Stratford residents would want to know. I think there's a real opportunity for restructuring our council meeting so that we don't, in the middle of it, have a 15-minute advertisement. We have actually, a 5 or 10-minute, substantive piece on, what's going on. As an example, this current council, we've been in play for 2 years. We don't even have quarterly reports out on how our budget is going compared to our actuals. In some cases, we're really the first, after we pass the budget, the first time that we're getting, verification of what happened that's in any way, delivered to us is the CAFRs, which is the audited results at the beginning of the next budget cycle. In theory, they're supposed to be posted per ordinance on the webpage, monthly updates of expenses versus revenues to actuals. But it's buried on the labyrinth of a website in a form that's completely inaccessible. And, what I would expect from a new administration, whoever it is, what I will be calling for is quarterly, the finance director coming into the council, telling us how we're doing relative to the budget we passed with a clear focus on areas of variance. Where have costs gone above or below what the target was, and where have revenues gone above or below, and why, and what are we doing about this? I've sat in on Board of Education meetings, which has its own finance committee, by the way, and they have these kind of reports. It's wild to me that we don't right now.
Agreed. And if you want to be really transparent, dump all the data onto the internet and let enterprising folks in Stratford, of which there are many, go and dig around and see what they can find. And that's, to me, that's transparency. Here's everything you need. Go take a look at it. And
some of it is there, to be clear, but the form that it's in, I think we could do so much better with the navigability of, and again, making the minutes actually meaningful, integrating in that so that going to one page for the recordings and the other page for there's a lot of modernization that could go on to make this just incredibly more accessible, even though I think most of it, like I said, I did have to remind the mayor she was behind by almost a year on her reporting out on the budget stuff and on the enterprise funds, but she did fix it within a week or so. But in the form it's in, even for someone like me who loves numbers, it's really tough to even make sense of it.
Exactly. And then if you're given data from a year ago, how can you react to something that happened a year ago? You want it quarterly so we can see if there's something's going sideways, right? And then you can make some choices around it. But without any information, I can't imagine that would be able to make any determination. And I know the Board of Education has a finance board and they seem to function very well. So let's start with that as our model and, see what else we decide to tweak. So, and that is composed of members of the community and
board members. Yeah. In the last couple of years, I think, they may not be meeting as regularly as they could either due to some leadership changes over there. But they at least have the tools and structure should they be so inclined to do it. We don't on the council. And the other part of public engagement that I would bring back is, every new council sets rules. And this council and many of the other ones, one of the first things that they've been doing in Stratford is creating a public comment meeting where we, by the rules that we create, are not able to respond to the public in the meeting. So the public comes, they speak their 3 minutes. If they go long, we tell them they need to be quiet. They ask questions along the way and they're told, per the rules, we cannot respond. And we should be more honest. Per the rules that this council created, which, I've opposed, but we didn't have the votes to overturn. There was no even discretionary ability of the chair to, if there's 30 people, obviously we can't allow, 2-minute responses to everybody. But if you give the chair discretion, some reasonable adjustment, we should at least be able to make people who, took the time to prepare a statement and come in and give it to us. And if they have a question, provide some sort of substantive response.
Agreed. And then we can stop wondering why people don't come and participate anymore because no one's getting any feedback about what there's. And I've been to a few council meetings. Some of them are quite lively, and I think that's great. And some people just want to kind of give an update on something wonderful that's happening in town, and we get no feedback at all. So hopefully in December that can be addressed, and we do something a little more interactive with folks. Yeah.
And what I, also would say as it relates to, the when and where even I feel like the council is, somewhat responding is to say, oh, well, email us, we'll email you back. And in some cases, like if let's say we are able to respond in the new council, but we don't have an answer on hand, and I've heard from some in the current administration who feel, well, with email now, like they can always access us. Like, why do we even need to have public comment? Well, the point of it is that if somebody thinks a question's worth asking, maybe there's other people who want to hear the answers. Even if we have to come back with an answer later, I feel like those answers should, in many cases, it'd be great to put those sort of things out into the public rather than choking this all down to be having all these side conversations.
Thank you both.
Chris and I could talk to each other all night, by the way.
You could talk all night. I'm going to do a shout out to anybody that's on there. We do have some people viewing. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat right now, because we will be wrapping this up shortly. So put them in. They obviously love to talk with each other. They'd love to answer any questions. I just wanted to get one more question out. I mean, you've both touched on it, but is there anything else you want to say about the thing we came to talk about? Is there any lingering thing you thought about? The 58 million,
just that I'm really disappointed in the response from the current administration to say that it's a lie. You can disagree with the tone with which the Chess campaign delivered it. Obviously, it's an election season, and how it may be framed, but to act like it doesn't exist, like it's not real. Anyone looking for the information that is available that I've been able to scrape and claw together can go to my Facebook candidate page, Chris Green for District 2, and see the pinned comment, which includes the video discussions of when I tried to bring this issue out, as well as the handout, which unfortunately wasn't made part of the budget book, which is public, and wasn't, to my mind, even really posted and should be, which is trying to connect, again, all of it together. So you can go there. And when the current administration said that this, was a lie, the way they responded to say, well, the way we could tell it's a lie is our grand list grew by 16%. That does not at all erase the opportunity lost in failing to find this mistake sooner. And another one of their responses was to say, well, no one in Stratford is not paying their taxes. Yes, we know, because we sent them the wrong bill, because we made an error on our end in how we calculated the taxes, because we thought things were incorrectly exempt when they shouldn't be. So, the non-response is really disappointing. If they wanted to give a response that was fair, they could say, well, the problem started before us, and we were the ones to fix it on our 8th try. And now it's fixed. But, to claim that it doesn't exist, I just don't understand. And to answer the question, is there a list of the businesses who were incorrectly exempt? We've asked for that, and I think people have FOIA'd it. In September meeting, the town attorneys reported there were 19 Freedom of Information requests filed. And I'm sure among them were some requests for this issue. What the town attorneys don't report out is how many outstanding FOIA requests are, and when and if any of them are resolved. So the culture around giving any information on this has been abysmal.
Thank you, Brenda, for the question. Thank you very much. Karen, any more that you want to add to that at all?
I just feel like if a chief executive of any organization learned of such a mistake under their watch, they would hit the roof. They would. And what else is there that we don't know about? And maybe that's actually happening. I hope it is. But without any transparency or any feedback, it's really unfortunate I don't feel that that's happening. And, to just take this and spin it and say we're lying and all that just does a disservice to the citizens of Stratford. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And we know the Chess campaign has FOIA'd for this, and other people have FOIA'd for this information for months now. We're not getting the information. So it's a disservice, again, back to that lack of trust. And I appreciate what Chris said. You may not like the tone. There are people that do not like that. They don't like when it gets, ugly or challenging, but it's not, because if you don't get what you need to do your job, it's very hard to reconcile. You can't go. You're considered going after somebody, but that's not what you're doing. You're trying to paint the picture, and it's like the call for civility is, just be really nice, but don't share any information, and that's.
Well,
Doesn't
facts
I
are
have,
stubborn things, aren't they?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
facts are out there.
I do have two other closing pieces I want to put out there. One was when I was talking earlier about, again, having, public comment, fixing the rules there. I want to make clear when I was speaking on my side and saying the broad council rejected it. We do have a caucus, Renee Gibson, Anthony Afriye, Caitlin Shake. We were all working together on that, and unfortunately we're opposed and not able to pass it. So I don't want to take all the credit for that. And the other part, your shirt, Kathleen, I want to throw out some Stratford pride. We are #1 in the state in turnout right now. And I think it's because people are paying attention, are getting engaged. Normal mayoral turnout is 33% of registered voters. Let's get out. Those of you this is resonating with and you want to see, us with the power to make those changes, get out and vote Roe.
Okay. Thank you both. I don't know if I'm going to get this last question in. I'm going to do it anyway. And Brenda, you asked a question. I don't want to ignore it. Your big concern is blight. What are the plans for change? We're going to have another live stream. We're going to have other candidates come on, so we'll make sure that's addressed then. This was specifically about this $58 million and, finance, budgeting, and all of that tonight. So we will get back to you on that. There are plans for that, and blight is a huge problem. So we will make sure, and I see David Chess is on this thread too on Facebook, so he'll reach out to you probably right now. So and hello, Mia. Mia's saying hello too. I'm going to put these here.
Have coffee with him tomorrow.
Here's the concern. I'm going to let everybody see it. Here's Mia. Mia's saying good evening to us. And I am going to show one other thing for another one that we should be having with probably our Board of Education. And can we see the report? I don't know if we have of this report from David. David, get that report out. We'll get it out to you, Brenda. So I just wanted to, I won't close because we did talk about the trust, and I wanted to see what kind of leadership it takes to change this culture. I think we had a display of the culture both in town council and throughout the entire town hall. I think I'll just share watching the two of you and working with all the candidates the Democratic Party is putting up. That's the kind of leadership it takes. So if you haven't spoken to our candidates yet, I recommend you meet them soon. That's why we wanted to do this, so that you could see two of them that are working on this very important issue and want to get a board of finance moving quickly once they get elected and reelected for Chris and Karen elected with him. I just want to close out. First off, thank you both for joining me this evening and joining people that are watching and will watch this recording after. Greatly appreciated your experience and your intention, engagement, everybody on here, for the questions, for watching. Thank you for joining us. Here's the truth. This conversation isn't just about missing money, as you heard. It's about missing accountability and the cost of silence. It's the cost to the citizens, the residents of Stratford, and our future growth. We deserve leaders who double check, who don't wait for audits, and they never forget that every dollar belongs to the people they serve. So we need to restore the trust in our leaders, our elected officials. We need to trust our residents and our community members to be part of the process, and we need to honor them when they come to speak before us. So a reminder, early voting continues at the Baldwin Center. We had another bang up day today with over 300 people. Again, thank you all for voting early. It helps us and it helps you. We will not continue to bother you. Baldwin Center tomorrow and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. again. We finished our 2 expanded days, and then Monday's a day off for all of you. We will still be calling and bothering you if you haven't voted. And election day is at your regular polling location from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. Thank you for being a voter this election cycle. Good night, everybody.
Nice, Stratford.
Good night.